Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to 21st Century HR Live. I'm your host, Lars Schmidt, and this is it's a special episode of 21st Century HR Live on a couple levels. So I'm going to be having my buddy Craig Fisher come on for our segment Office Hours with Craig Fisher. Also want to let all of you know that for those of you viewing that hadn't checked out my LinkedIn post, a daily streaming show's kind of a lot. And over the last 3 weeks, that has become clear to me. And I'm somebody who's working on a variety of things. I'm writing a book, dad to two amazing girls, founder and CEO and entrepreneur of a company. And so, the idea of producing a daily show on top of all those things, while in theory was awesome, in execution, a little tough to pull off, not to mention sleeping and all the other things that are important to one's viability. So this is going to be the final episode of the daily live video show. I'm going to be shifting to a weekly format next week. So the days are going to be a little sporadic. So next week I'm going to have Claude Silver, VaynerMedia's Chief Heart Officer, on Thursday. So you definitely want to tune in for that. Following week, I'm going to be taking a hiatus week. And the week after that, actually, that's not true. The following week, I'm going to have Bill Borman on Friday. The week after that, I'm going to have my friend Elise Hugh, who is a reporter for NPR, on as well. And then getting into June, it'll basically be same time every Friday at noon. So the schedule is going to be a little sporadic over the course of the next couple of weeks. And then in June, it's going to stabilize every Friday, noon, same time. And it'll move to the weekly format. So for those of you that have been tuning in since I've launched this, thanks for tuning in. It's been a wild ride. It's been a lot of fun. Weekly is going to be a lot more manageable. So, again, we'll have a couple sporadic episodes, and then in June, we'll stabilize with every Friday. So with that, let me pull in my friend Craig Fisher. And again, as a reminder for all of you that might be joining Office Hours for the first time, this is the show within a show. That technically this is the last official formal show within a show. But as Craig and I do, we love to just jump on things in real time and do them. So this isn't the end of Office Hours with Craig and Lars. This is the end of the regularly scheduled programming, and we'll be popping in at random times, whatever. So Craig, how are you, buddy?
I am the same, Lars. I'm exactly the same. Nothing changes these days. And the months go on and on and on and on.
Yeah, the sun it goes down, but it comes back up again, and it does that every day. That's we can count on that. It's one of the few things we can count on right now.
It helps us to remain fearless, right? I mean, there's nothing to fear here, Lars. Everything's good.
I appreciate your optimism. I appreciate how you took the natural cyclical nature of the sun to be a point of fear, but you're a Texan. Texans are fearless anyway, so
that's right. We can have social distance pork butt smoking cookouts with our neighbors.
Let's talk about your butt. Tell me more about that.
It's funny. So I was on the Career Crossroads happy hour chat last night with Chris and Jerry and a bunch of people, and I told them that I had to go get ready for a smoked pork butt party. And they just had a lot of fun with that. And so, I've got great new neighbors we just moved down the street, right? And I've got great new neighbors, and they like to hang out at a distance of, 6 feet or more with cocktails and various foods. They had a margarita cart that they pulled around the neighborhood on Tuesday for Cinco de Mayo. So it's a great place to live. We're really fortunate to have great neighbors here.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's funny. We moved into this house about 3 years ago, and the neighborhood was just starting to turn over. There's a lot of original owners who had kids. Kids grew up. Kids moved out, and so we moved in, and there weren't that many kids. And since all this happened, 2 families with kids, around our daughter's age, moved in to the cul-de-sac in the street. So we will walk down there and say, hey, but we haven't really been able to obviously hang out or see no margarita carts yet. But wow, that's a strike of inspiration. That may have to that we may have to be the source of that.
It's a good idea. So they just put all their supplies in a wagon pulled the wagon, and just, any Taco Tuesday would work for that, right? So you don't need Cinco de Mayo to come back.
That's true. It could be Cinco de Wednesday.
Could be I'd say Taco Tuesday is better, but
yeah. I feel like Taco Tuesday's got a lot of hype already. I think if you want to build something new, it's like that hashtag that's already well used. Like it's like, I've got a brilliant idea for a hashtag. Like, sorry, like tons of traffic on it. You got to pick something.
Listen,
and it breaks your heart.
Listen, Lars, it doesn't always have to be something new. You don't have to be a trailblazer with something new to bring margaritas to your neighbors down the street.
Yes, you do, Craig. Yes, you do. All right. I could talk margaritas with you for the remaining 24 minutes of this podcast, and that would be very exciting and also probably a little self-indulgent. But the viewers don't want to just hear us talk about margaritas. And
I don't know about that.
Yeah, actually, that's fair. If you're streaming, add to the comments right now if you want us to talk about margaritas for the entire show. You just let us know. But in the meantime, as we're gathering that feedback, actually, I do want to jump over to we'll introduce questions as we get them, and we get a question from Shamsul on LinkedIn, and he is asking about what are when you think about kind of the new normal, right? The term we're using all the time now. What are the inputs for that? And I'm trying to get in terms of inputs on new normal. I think I would just say it's a couple things, right? It's how the world is at that time. What are the constraints placed on just the world and life in general by COVID? And then also how our organization is trying to adapt and, either iterate their pre-COVID practices to a post-COVID world or build new practices for this new reality. I hope to see more of the latter. But Craig, I'm curious to get your take on that.
So I think that, what we're going to end up with is new practices. Okay. I've said before that I fear that some employers are going to act like, hey, we've got the safety thing down, right? We've got whatever measures we end up with in place, whether it's testing or taking temperatures or whatever scandalous HIPAA laws we're going to completely wreck. I think some employers are going to say, we've got that down. Now we need to be business as usual. Let's keep going. I think smart employers, people first organizations are going to have a choice policy. And I think the choice policy is going to be, understanding that teams can be agile remotely and be very effective. We've proven it. Pollution is down in all these major city centers because of the lack of commuting. I mean, all of these things should come together to give us a better, new normal. New normal is not going to be everyone stays at home. But it is going to be, I think, a combination of good things. And that's my optimistic hope.
Yeah. Are we talking hashtag new normal?
Hashtag new normal.
That's hashtag new normal. All right. Okay, Craig, week in talent. It's been a busy week. What stood out to you?
So I was on a Candis candidate experience and talent board call yesterday. And they shared some very interesting stats that I'll give you here. In the month of April, from April 1st to April 24th, they surveyed employers, and hiring decreased another 19% during that time. That's not super surprising, but it's a big number. Companies saying that they are furloughing or laying off employees increased another 45%. And there's an interesting point on that. So when I was talking with Jerry yesterday on their happy hour call, he says he believes, and I agree with him, that companies really aren't just furloughing people, that they're actually laying people off. They're saying the word furlough because it's convenient right now, but it's really layoffs. And a lot of those workers will not come back. So we know that unemployment requests are spiking. And so this is probably going to be the beginning of a fairly long period of pretty high unemployment numbers. So that's my kind of not so rosy outlook on this last week's news.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are, obviously when the economy was humming and businesses were humming, all companies carry a degree, a certain number of an employee population that, probably don't need to be there in terms of performance, but they're either they don't have the systems in place to really assess that, or the business is just humming, or they have leaders that don't want to make that call. And so, in scenarios like this, not to say that all of those decisions are performance related, they're absolutely not. So let me be clear about that. But I think a lot of companies, obviously, if you're going through a reduction and there are people that fit that category, there's probably people that they're going to be considering. I think when I look at the past week, the thing that really stands out to me is Airbnb. For those of you, I imagine most of you have seen this if you're watching this, but they had a reduction of about 25% of their workforce, including, it was about 1,900 employees around the world. That's not the news. The news is actually how they processed and handled that exit. So I'm probably forgetting some of the things that they gave employees, but they gave them, I think, 13 weeks of severance, and there was an additional week for every year of service. They're covering their healthcare benefits for a year, which again, in the States, that really matters. We don't have universal healthcare, so that's a big issue. And COBRA, which is usually when you're laid off, you have the ability to purchase COBRA benefits. They're super expensive, which is not an easy thing to do when you are, not having a job in the midst of the worst labor market since the Great Depression. So that's a big deal. They allowed them to keep their computers, their laptops, just a nice gesture. But what they also did is they're actually repurposing, because they're obviously, not hiring nearly the scale they were in January. So they're repurposing their internal recruiting team to be an outplacement resource for their staff. And so they're kind of redeploying their recruiting resources to actually help these impacted employees land on their feet and find a new job. And they actually, you've probably been tracking this. A lot of companies have been having layoffs, have had created layoff lists, which are basically, opt-in lists of all the employees who are impacted, including links to their LinkedIn profile, email, job title, cities they're open to, et cetera, just to make it really easy for recruiters who are hiring to find them. They had that built within 24 hours, and they didn't just have it built. Like most of these things, and I've seen a lot of them, they're just banged out on Excel. I'm sorry, not Excel, like Google Docs. So Sheets for Google. They built theirs in Coda, which, if you haven't seen Coda, definitely recommend check it out. It's like Google Docs on steroids. But they built out this magnificent, it's basically like a microsite in Coda for impacted employees. So I've got a link to that on my LinkedIn feed if you haven't seen that yet. But I'm curious, like, what's your take? We've seen lots of layoffs, unfortunately. I think we will continue to see so. But this was, both the effort, and then their CEO wrote a really heartfelt message about, the decision and what went into it, and how they kind of came to the decision around their separation package. So curious to get your take as well.
So I think a lot of companies are getting really creative with this. We know that there's massive partnerships going on between a lot of the hospitality industry companies, Hilton, Marriott, et cetera, and companies like CVS to absorb furloughed workers into call center and warehouse jobs in the healthcare industry. And, not coincidentally, the healthcare industry is the highest percentage of industries that are hiring right now. And that remains strong. And there are some industries that, are remaining strong. Technology hiring is remaining consistent. And so I think that some of the creative things that are happening are still stimulating the economy in a way. It's interesting that you mentioned the Airbnb story. When we were talking yesterday on the CXR chat, it came out, Grant Clough, I think, said that his buddy is in the RV industry and says that RV sales have remained steady. And normally in a downturn, we see those plummet. And so, it makes sense that people would want to get away and take off in their RV and maybe even purchase an RV to do some social distancing. But that's one good economic indicator. And I think what we'll see with Airbnb is they will bounce back pretty well. Their predictions are that they will. And hopefully they're, if they have furloughed people, that they'll be able to absorb them back in.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think that, there's obvious sectors that are being crushed by this, right? Hotel, travel, airline, hospitality, cruises, retail and restaurants to an extent as well. So,
right.
And then there's others that are having, a boom, obviously, Zoom, streaming tools, distributed work tools and collaboration tools, things like that, home exercise equipment. Peloton is killing it, obviously. So it's, it's interesting because I think as we get into this, as we get further into this, I mean, you and I have talked about this before, like this is a long tail thing, right? This isn't a thing where, we talk about kind of reinventing work and reimagining work. Well, work's going to be different. And I think that anybody who thinks that we're going to be, back in a place that, neatly mirrors where we were in January is short-sighted. Like we're never going to get back to that exact place. There was an article in Fast Company that I read about a guy in Shanghai. He's an architect, and he wrote a story about a day in the life of going back to work. So he basically wrote a story, like a post about his first day going back to work in Shanghai and what was involved, right? Like going into an office, getting your temperature checked, going in the door, distancing all the way through the elevator, getting up into the office, having all these safety protocols in the office. At one point he's in the office and his mask broke, he's freaking out, where do I get a mask? How do I get it? And had this moment of anxiety, and then, found they had like a stockpile. So we got that. You can't have the air on, air conditioning on, circulating, potentially infected air. So all the AC units are off. Windows are open. It's hot.
Yeah.
It's unbearable. And he was like, yeah, I'm not going back to the office anymore. Like, I'm just going to be working from home. And so I just think, people are looking at this. I always appreciate the optimists. I'm an eternal optimist, but I think people look at this as like, oh, well, we're just going to go back into the office. We're going to open things up. Like, no, you're not. And I think that we're seeing, at least in the States, some companies are kind of looking at that with rose-colored glasses right now. And they're doing that, and we'll see where we are in 3 or 4 weeks. But it doesn't seem like that's going to lead to a positive outcome.
Yeah, I think we're going to find out real fast how well this works or doesn't work, right? And fortunately, there is a China that's on the other side of the curve and is going back to the office. We have people in China going back to offices as well. So far, we're seeing okay results. We'll see how long that lasts. In the U.S., we have said that we're in no hurry to rush people back to the office, and so I think that's a good policy, and I think that's what we should be doing, right?
Yeah.
Business is continuing now. Yeah, I'll tell you that we had a really good first quarter, and it'll be interesting. I mean, second quarter obviously will be down. For most employers. And so, we know that the trickle down impact of that, will show up in fourth quarter or first quarter of next year, how you are able to plan for and fund the following year's activity. So I think we will see this sort of roller coaster that most economists are predicting, and the same thing with the epidemic, right? We're going to very likely see a bounce back in the fall when it's typically flu season. This is the flu, but it's the new flu. #new flu. I think we might be getting to that. But one interesting thing is employers are increasing their communication about coronavirus. A lot of employers are 17% increased their response that they are putting coronavirus statements on their career sites. and communicating with job candidates better about what the impact may be to the hiring process and things like that. So I think employers are starting to catch on that we need to be doing something about this. And then there's a lot of tech pivots that I see that are very interesting. So Smart Recruiters, I did a podcast with Jerome Tiernick, the CEO of Smart Recruiters. They have been building sites to help displaced workers. They started it with a thing in the Netherlands and then Lebanon, and then they helped to start the recruiting recruiters initiative here. And then they've also made a quick switch of their CRM to help companies do internal redeployment that they say they can stand up within 7 days for any employer. So that's very interesting. And I think if there is some possibility of a positive outcome here, it's the fact that we would be retooling and upskilling employees to do jobs in different parts of the company. And tools like this will help us understand who they are and what their updated profiles are and what their skills are. Because a lot of employers have no idea about what are the current skills of someone they hired 7 years ago. They don't get a new resume or anything like that. And so without some open web data to update those profiles, it'd be difficult to do. Quantum Work does the same thing. And there's a couple of technologies that are starting to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you look about when you talk to people leaders and business leaders about some of the changes they see coming kind of through this, I think that the shift towards more agile teams, is definitely one of them. I think that companies aren't going to be able to carry the headcount and resources the same way that they used to. They're going to have to. They're more constrained. They're going to be much more budget and cost conscious. So I think that where they can find agile teams and create leverage technology to actually get a real view of the skills and capabilities of the people they have and redeploy them based on business and project needs. That's huge. Versatility is going to be huge. So it'll be really interesting to see how that develops. Let me get your thoughts on that. But also, you mentioned, obviously some of the technology. What technology exists today that can allow organizations to start doing that?
Yeah. So if you look at quantum.work, that's one of the technologies that Allegis has built to, allow sort of internal understanding of who you have that can do different jobs in your organization, right? So the upskilling can start to happen, but if you just search on technologies similar to that, similar web, then you'll find a few tools that can do that. And Smart Recruiters is one of the ones now that says that their CRM can do it. But what it allows you to do is take your existing employee population and put it through an open web search to update their profiles and pull in, their current skills from their LinkedIn profile, any information that they've put out on, coding sites and things like that, so that you can get a better understanding of your own employee population, because that is a real issue for employers, not really understanding, because we don't ask our own employees for a new resume or an updated profile very often. But some of these tools can actually help employers understand what that skill set they have internally is.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think that, necessity breeds invention, and we're going to find some really interesting platforms and technology coming out of this. So this is our final programmed office hours. Craig and I are going to be a little self-indulgent and hopefully be a little bit entertaining right now. So we've always joked about there's a book that my friend Matt Buckland sent me called Emergency Questions from Richard Herring. And he is a comedian, host in the UK, and does lots of interviews and wrote a book on basically ridiculous interview questions. And so Craig and I always joke to say, can we do something like this, like an interview, and keep a straight face through all this? So we're going to attempt to do that. We're both laughing right now. It's going to go horribly, and nobody's going to be able to keep a straight face. But I think we're ready. Craig, we got 5 minutes. You ready to see how many of these we can get in?
Absolutely.
Okay. This is going to be so bad.
All right.
But it's fine. We've got 4 minutes.
Everything's fine.
So Craig, What celebrity would you like to stroke your hair as you die?
Right. I always say George Clooney to this. That's just, straight up. I just want to meet George Clooney. So whatever circumstance is fine.
If it takes a tragic death to do so, it's fine. We have to. Life's about decisions and trade-offs.
Right.
Have you ever been in the vicinity of Bigfoot, but not seen it, but sensed it was watching you?
I so wish. There's a new, I don't know how new it is, but there's a new documentary on Netflix called "Don't Call Me Bigfoot," and it doesn't poke fun so much as kind of gives a real understanding of who these people are that think Bigfoot really exists. It's pretty good. Mm-hmm.
What children's toy or accessory do you wish existed in adult form?
Play-Doh.
Play-Doh does exist in adult form.
It's just Play-Doh.
That's the least creative answer I've ever heard, Craig.
All right, listen.
Rescind that. I want to
all children's toys exist in adult form. They're just the same toys. So look, we need to do an interview where we pretend to be the employer, but say all of our words wrong, like intensive purposes and irregardless.
You know, we're gonna do that. We're gonna pivot because we like to operate in real time. I'm gonna ask you horrible interview questions. We're gonna close out the show with that.
Okay.
How many Lego pieces can you fit in Yankee Stadium?
To be honest, Lars, I don't know the answer to that. And if I tried to answer it here just in real time, I do a terrible job. First, I was told there'd be no math. And second, I love transparency. I don't know.
Okay. If you could name any governing body of a field of work that has completely let down its members in the course of a global pandemic, who would it be and why? Sure.
I'm not going to answer that.
Noted. I mean, we can keep going. This is, by the way, this is when Craig and I first piloted this concept of office hours. We were doing it on Instagram Live, and it was essentially this. It was a show for an audience of two, and it was pretty much just us.
And it will be this again.
Yeah, it will be this again. So we're getting back to our roots.
Can I mention, by the way, shameless plug for a book that I'm a contributing author to, Give and Get Employer Branding by let's see here. It says Brian Adams and Charlotte Marshall. We know them.
You're really just dropping a random plug. I mean, it's like, what else you got? We got 2 minutes left. Are you selling anything?
I'm going to start talking about companies that are sponsoring me to be on this podcast next.
Should we talk about quantum some more? Actually,
let's talk about things that I did all the branding for. Yes, absolutely.
Charlotte and Brian are both amazing. They were on the show actually on Tuesday. Right. We had a chance to talk about the book. So definitely, all jokes aside, if you're in the field of employer branding or curious, highly recommend the book. It's a solid one.
It is.
Last bad interview question for you.
All right.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah. So I would love to say that I see myself pioneering some new wonderful HR technology that will change the face of recruiting, but that never actually happens. So I'm not going to say that. I will say that I will probably be doing something very similar to what I'm doing now in 5 years. How about you?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I know.
I like that. It's up to the four winds.
Hopefully, I'm going to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, I will still be having fun and have lots of interesting creative outlets to pursue. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, office hours and cool tools will still be going strong. So.
Right.
Yeah, but beyond that, 5 years is too far. Can't do 5 years.
The next Cool Tools show is actually scheduled in 5 years.
We're getting aggressive on that timeline.
That's right.
Look at us. We're always pushing the envelope,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I think next time we do this, we need to do it with drinks.
Fair.
Just a thought.
Or you're taking it back to margaritas. I think that's a fitting, you're tying it all together.
That's right.
Why Craig is so good at what he does.
Everything comes back to margaritas.
Yeah. So threading that needle, that narrative. Well, Craig, it's been awesome. It's been a fun 3 weeks of office hours with Craig and Lars on a scheduled basis. This is not the end of the show, but it's the end of the program show. So we'll be back at
Thank God.
Yeah. Rest in peace, office hours. But we'll be back at a moment of our choosing. And
yes, join us for pop-up office hours.
Pop-up office hours. Yeah, that's the new age. So
coming soon.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be a blast. So Craig, buddy, thanks for being game, piloting, always having fun. And thanks for all of you who have been tuning in to the regularly programmed episodes. We'll be back on a weekly basis starting next week.
Bye, everybody.
See you, everybody.